Nash, Deputy, you have 5 minutes.
My good, well, I was reading through this bill over the last few days. One kind of thought struck me: what do we mean by responsibility? In particular, what is our own cultural attitude in this country to responsibility? With a personal view that for too long, our default approach to responsibility has been like someone sitting in a restaurant looking at the healthy option on the menu. We know it's the right thing to do, we know it's good for us, but we quietly hope that somebody else will take up the option for us. But responsibility, as you're aware, isn't somebody else's problem. It's an obligation that befalls on all of us. As a country, of course, we've learned some very hard lessons. And the fact of the matter is that the people we represent, through one measurement or another, are taking a very difficult and heavy burden at the moment. But the recent strong vote in favour of the Fiscal Stability Treaty demonstrated a number of things. A vote for which the country was rewarded immediately by a dramatic lowering in the interest rates demanded by lenders on the international markets. Those lower rates, of course, have allowed Ireland to return successfully to the international money markets, bringing closer the day when we can wave goodbye to the Troika and once again raise all our required funding on the international markets as an economically sovereign nation. Had the electorate, of course, decided that they were going to heed the populist and sometimes hysterical rants from Sinn Féin, for example, from the far left, and voted against the treaty, I've no doubt that at this stage we would be considering setting up the guest rooms for the Troika for a much more prolonged period. This bill allows the state to bring in prudent housekeeping measures and an independent system of checks and balances, which of course has been the norm and the general mode of operation in most developed countries. There's nothing unusual in this. The main instrument of that independent system will of course be the Irish Fiscal Advisory Council provided for by this legislation. The Council will assess and report on the macroeconomic and budgetary forecasts of this government and all future governments. When the Advisory Council set up its offices, I took it personally as a good omen that they have made their home in Whitaker Square, named of course after Ken Whitaker, probably one of the greatest servants this country has ever seen, and who was educated in my own hometown of Drogheda, and somebody who I have the pleasure of knowing. Dr. Whitaker, of course, in his role advising several successive administrations, was always the epitome of unassuming wisdom and demonstrated, I think, the best in our public service. What's best in our public service? Such selfless public service, I think, is in stark contrast to the cynical, self-serving populism that masks itself as opposition that we heard from Deputy McDonnell and others today and yesterday. Deputy McDonnell's party, of course, continues to trade on people's fears and offers, sweet panaceas, the latest being a wealth tax based on figures that are in fact 6 years out of date. So enough said on that. They offer simple and popular solutions, but unfortunately they won't work. And if they were in power, they wouldn't implement them in the first place. How do I know this? I know this fine well, Cathaoirleach. All I have to do is look 30 miles north from my own hometown and see what they do where they are in power. In the north, Sinn Féin are implementing cuts left, right and centre. They're taking in local property rates of approximately £1,000 a year on an ordinary 3-bed semi. Their government as well yesterday in the north, a government which they play a central role in, announced swinging cuts in care centres, which will see 750 places lost over the next 5 years. Based on all of this evidence and based on everything that we know, how could we possibly believe the word that comes out of any Sinn Féin representative's mouth in relation to public services and their commitment to public services? It rings very, very hollow indeed. If there was a simple, popular solution to the problems that we're experiencing, it would have been done a long time ago. Of course, it was what was simple and popular that helped us get into this mess in the first place. Unfortunately, the result of 15 years of simple and popular is probably about 10 years of bloody difficult and unpopular. As a country, we have grown up. We've had to. We were obliged to. We're obliged to take responsibility. It's called being mature. It's about being responsible. And on that basis, I'm happy to support this bill.
Thank you very much, Deputy.